Hello everyone, my name is Devin Youngbird. I am the developer on a game called A Beast in My Dreams. And this is going to be just sort of a walkthrough of the process and things that kind of led to the development of this. Basically a post-mortem of sorts, kind of reviewing, as I like to do, of games that I've worked on. And this is a particularly special one in the sense of what led up to it. And I've been kind of putting it off for a while, but I figure it's time to just do a quick walkthrough and kind of revisit it as I released it at the beginning of the year. And we're getting closer to the end, still a few months to go, but it kind of just feels like a good time to do a revisit. So, starting off, this is a game that started with the concept and premise of expressing the idea of grief. At the time, one of my grandfathers had passed away, Dan Schaefer, and it was a lot to deal with at the time. And so I was searching for an outlet, some way to kind of express those emotions. And so it basically led to this game, which isn't really a game. I like to label it as more of like an atmospheric experience or something more so. And basically like me recognizing him as a person who had such an impact on me, and the grief that I felt in his absence. And yeah, so that's the basic premise of it. Starting off. But yeah, so this is just a beginning room with tutorials. You know, WASD, WAS for movement, the mouse. It kind of, with the filter we have going on here, it kind of blurs the words here, but, you know, grab item with left click and throw with right click. And E is more of like an interaction button, as you'll see here, E to light the candle. And so candles were a big part of like a memorial to Dan when he passed, because it was just kind of showing the light, I guess, he gave and like he brought to our life. And it's a concept visited later on in the game as well, with us blowing the candle out to signify the end. You know, kind of symbolic meaning. And so I kind of like this reveal here when I first started development, in the sense of this long hallway, very dreamy. You see this kind of painterly effect going on with this camera effects used by Colorful FX, which is a great Unity asset for post-processing. And yeah, so a hallway holding different doors to different stages of grief, which some players figured out, some players didn't. I think starting off, some players were still under the idea that it was a horror game, like it was going to be a scary game, and admittedly that's how it started out, but I kind of, during the development cycle, I got more attracted to the idea of creating a dreamlike experience, in a sense. And that glitch effect is, I don't know, I really like that. That's again the Colorful FX, randomly kind of just chiming in. And so you approach him, he'll stand up and kind of cover his face. We have the podiums here in the rooms. So we'll start off with the first room, which has a little lighthouse. And so the first stage of grief is a deniability and isolation. And the first idea that comes with that is Lighthouse for me, which seems like a go-to place for some people. You get to move boxes, some red lighting going on. Excuse me, Mr. Box. And we kind of have this other narration going on with these projector-based lettering on the walls in each level. I was alone, going back to that isolation and denying. You see the ocean just kind of spans all around you in this lighthouse. And so I kind of like the idea of this maze puzzle originally, but as I watch people play it, I realize it's very difficult to move it. But as someone who had to constantly test it, it wasn't that big of a deal for me personally. But I completely get the frustration. But it's basically, symbolic. Find your way through the maze. I say it's not frustrating anymore, but here I am having trouble. Move it down. Please. Photo. So yeah, you just connect the glowing objects in that puzzle and turns on our lighthouse. And that's supposed to be this kind of a sign that it's time to move on out. You've accomplished this part of the level, and you can just head on down. Excuse Mr. Fox. You can kind of hear the engine humming. And going to the second room. Actually, after you accomplish each room, you would get these letters. Simple UI image overlaid with more words to lead the player down that narration path, and also pictures to kind of represent, frowny face to the monster down there. It looks just like him. Not really. And then these glowing boxes that'll become important sorry, later on down the road. So the next one, the broken coffee cup. Second stage of grief is anger, which obviously was represented by red. In kind of this more intensely warm lit room as opposed to the cooler colored lit the last one. And this puzzle is it's not even a puzzle really. You're just supposed to pick up the cups. I like the fact that they just break when you throw them. I always like kind of physics and stuff like that. And the unspillable coffee. I'm not entirely sure why coffee cups. Maybe because of the last game. Maybe because I drank a lot of coffee during the development cycle. You see the physics sometimes it goes through, but just a target. And again, the narration, I was angry. Yeah, it's a very, very simple room. And again, with the boxes and a note, kind of a why, how, why, and also kind of establishing this sort of thing at the bottom corner of the notes with letters the player can read, and kind of piece together the word grief. But going to the next room, green, this represents the stage of bargaining, which a lot of people turn to religion, I think, in those times, and whatever religion that might be. But so that's why this ended up being basically this church, very simply. Again, narration on the walls, what is your offer? And this puzzle gave a lot of people trouble, which is understandable. By all means, I wish I would have laid it out a little bit further. I think that would have helped a lot. But surprisingly, everyone figured it out that I've talked to about it, maybe by brute force or by luck. And I find it's easier to stack the boxes too if you stand further away from them. Oop. So there's that. And grab this box. But it really is, again, symbolic because of the Mr. Bell. The representation of drawings on the side, grief, love, money. I really like how there's stained glass back here amidst this light too. I really love this. It's so colorful. But yeah, that's why this is the way it is to church. People usually turn towards religion in a sense of bargaining with a higher power, and whatever form that might come to people, I know it differentiates severely, and this is kind of where my mind jumped to when dealing with this particular stage of grief. And so going to the last room with depression has a TV, and it really is simplified in the sense of this is what I was going through. I felt like was this rhythm and routine of not really getting anywhere, and this probably frustrated a lot of people, this puzzle in particular, because it moves the pieces around. I think players felt like they needed to perfectly place the pieces, but it's by no means needed or required. It was just to figure out the pattern. And so that routine was, just we would, I would eat, and then I would, lay on the couch. Is that a three? A three. And watch TV. And it was really that same thing, day in, day out. Eat, sleep. And that's sort of my take on depression. I know that varies from a lot of people. But that's why this is kind of a darker room in that sense. And a lot of, those blue light, cooler colors. And the buttons to represent the repetition for this room. And so the final thing to do after... Actually, I didn't read the notes for these ones. So yeah, with bargaining, it's basically a way saying that you would trade anything and everything to really kind of have those moments with the person who passed away back again. And at this point, you're just kind of wordless. Happy thoughts. The last thing to do is just take these boxes and place them on pedestals. Excuse me, sir. Beep boop. I'm not entirely sure why he picked boxes. I just liked how they looked. And I liked that they glowed. So I decided to keep them. They were primitives originally, but I was like, I like how they look. Especially this one's see-through. So that's pretty cool. And so after you place the boxes up there, you'll do a fade out. And once you fade back in, the monster's gone, and it's really it's time to visit the last stage of grief, which would be acceptance. And in the sense of this one, it's, from my experience watching the Let's Plays and things, it kind of keeps players on... This room in particular gets people on the edge because of this constant beeping, which is good because that's kind of the feeling I got when I first started hearing the audio, and I really hated it. Especially this part, as it gets more intense and the shaky camera. And I think this part really kind of brings together all these moments of kind of leading up to it through the rooms of the stages of grief. Eventually the monitor ends up flatlining. There's another fade out and a scene change. to the original room with the beast. And so by this point, most players figured out that this was a representation, kind of a manifestation of the concept of grief. And that's exactly what it is. To me personally, I really like to use monsters in a symbolic sense, and this is kind of what it felt like to me. I had a couple sketches in my sketchbook and things like that of ideas for this monster. Just glowing eyes and this sort of void-like appearance. I don't know what word I was trying to go for there. And so at the end, it's kind of like you come to peace with grief in a sense. He's intimidating, but not in the sense of like he's going to harm you. He's not here to hurt you in any sort of way or anything like that. But he does look like he's going to kind of smack you, and that's just because of animation that I got off the Unity Asset Store, which had like these fantasy animations. And this is kind of cool. Like, I thought it was kind of interesting. So I ended up keeping it in. But revisiting the concept of blowing out the candle to represent the end was what we did with sort of that representation and nod to Dan after he passed away, kind of symbolizing that light going out, which can be a sad thing or a really beautiful thing. But grief's always kind of a weird thing to deal with, and that's where this game helped me a lot, was going through that and representing that in a way that I could express to others, and that they would play this and that they would understand and feel sort of what I was going for. Not really sort of, like they did, like on point. Players have sent me the kindest messages and have shared their feelings and thoughts on, the process of grief and their videos that they've done, and I am truly thankful for each one of them, because I can't even begin to express what it means to me as a developer and artist for one, but also as a person that went through this process of grief, that had trouble getting over this concept of not having someone in your life anymore. I feel like the game helped me cope with that in a very real way. But without getting too emotional here, I feel a lot of things in the game went well, that it expressed my emotions and my grief, and it shared a message that I think resonated with players, and I can't ask for anything more than that, and hope I did Dan proud by this game. And yeah, so that was a beast in my dreams, and it was a short walkthrough, but if you have any more questions or concerns, be sure to write me an email or share a comment, and I will be sure to get back to you. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to listen to me ramble about the development process and my feelings and thoughts on these games that I make, and I hope that you learned a little bit from it. Thank you.